Excited for this one because it's the first event of 2022 for the UFC, and really the first week that there's been any live MMA shows kicking off for the year. So there's actually going to be quite a few events this year. You know they got the Invicta FC 45 show, which is going to have the main event of Alicia Zapatello taking on Jessica Del Boni. That is going to be a rematch. They're fighting for that atomweight world title. I think Zapatello's been talking about coming up to 115 after, so maybe if she wins, she'll come to UFC. Who knows? But then they got Haley Cowan on there. She's good gymnast. I feel like she's kind of overrated, but she's taking on Monica Franco. That should be a decent fight. Helen Peralta's on that card, who, you know, if you don't know about Helen Peralta, she always has fun fights. She's a banger. She's a bare-knuckle FC fighter as well, so should be a decent card there. And then they also have a KSW card going on this week with some good matchups on that card. Even Habib's Promotions going down, you know, that EFC 44, I think it's going to, I don't know exactly where it is, but it's going to be their first event in the United States, and obviously that's kind of a funky card, right, where I'm not even really sure what to think about that card. I mean, what do you guys think in the comments, like, about Rashad Evans coming back? They had Tyrone Spong taking on Bigfoot Silva at first. They had, I believe for another event, they've announced Kevin Lee taking on Diego Sanchez and all this stuff. So they got some weird, I believe, kind of lopsided matchmaking going on there. And then I think Henan Browl is on that card as well. So, man, I mean, who's going to start off the year with a bet on Rashad Evans and Henan Browl? I mean, a few people probably going to do that. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't advise that one. And then, you know, we also got LFA show going on this weekend that's pretty good as well. So there's quite a bit of MMA in the LFA show. I know Anvar Bornazarov is fighting, and he actually has a win over Giga Chikadze, so that's going to be interesting. He's 2-0. He's kind of just making his way up, kind of transitioning from kickboxing, but he's you know, a good fighter to watch there. But going to go down into this card, you know, it's UFC Fight Night Kattar versus Chikadze. Before we get that going, I just want to say, you know, still got the Patreon going on if you want to go over there and support. Still got quite a few people over there supporting, you know, liking the content. And just like all the events that I've talked about just now, I'm going to be, you know, giving some predictions for those events, giving some bets and things like that. And last year, you know, even in a year where I felt like we didn't do quite as well as I was expecting, we still, you know, had a decent return where people that even had the highest package, you know, 12 months for the $25 package, they still made, you know, over double their money back on the bets that I gave them. And then they got some nice content. They got to be part of the community over there, got to have access to ask me questions, things like that. So definitely think it's a worthwhile thing to get. And I think, you know, if you want to go over there and support, I would really appreciate it. So check out the Patreon if you're not over there. But we're going to get into this fight card with this first fight. It's Vanessa Demopoulos. She's going to be taking on Silvana Gomez Juarez. Kind of low-level fight. Two girls that are 0-1 so far in the UFC careers. Vanessa Demopoulos, she obviously is famous for, you know, being a stripper, transitioning to MMA, and then she fought for the LFA title. She actually won the LFA title against Sam Hughes. Then she fought Lupita Godinez, who's obviously now in the UFC. She came up short in that fight. She had another fight where she did really well in LFA. I can't remember. The opponent wasn't a high-level opponent, but she got a very quick knockout, I believe like 30 seconds or less. And then she got the short notice opportunity to debut at up a weight class. So she was at flyweight taking on JJ Aldridge. Came up short in that one, lost kind of lopsided decision. But Vanessa Demopoulos, you know, she's a grappler. She has a really good guard, and she doesn't really have the wrestling, though. I mean, her wrestling is really putrid. So, you know, if you tag that along with the fact that she has a really short reach, she's 5'2", 62-inch reach. This fight, she kind of matches up fairly decent with Gomez in terms of the height and reach, but still at a slight disadvantage. But on the feet, she is very tough. She's willing to take some punishment, and she throws some okay kicks, but she just doesn't set her kicks up at all, struggles to find the range, and throws real wild punches. She has some okay power, but just not a very good striker. You know, bad defense, walks into shots, very kind of, you know, She has really bad footwork. She doesn't move well, kind of stiff, rigid. And she just wants to kind of crash that distance, use her big punches to get in the clinch and either pull guard or somehow drag you to the ground. And if she can get on top, she's mean, man. She has good ground and pound, big elbows. She has a good submission game. And she'll pull guard and sweep or submit you as well. Good leg locks, good triangles, good arm bars. So she's a dangerous fighter in terms of a lot of her fights she's losing, comes back to get the win. And she's beaten a couple girls that I feel like were better than her and are better than her, but she just somehow was able to take some punishment and get it to the ground, and then from there she really dominated girls such as Loveth Young, who I actually think are good fighters. She beat Sam Hughes with a come from behind inverted triangle submission. So Vanessa, she's one of these girls that has a lot of heart, a lot of cardio, doesn't have a lot of skill on the feet, but if she connects, she does have some decent power. And she also has the ability to finish you on the ground. So, dangerous girl, kind of opportunistic finisher type of girl, but fights that go to decision, she doesn't really have that full MMA game in terms of getting the takedowns, getting the top control, or being able to outstrike somebody so she can lose decisions. And she's just not a very polished overall fighter. 33 years old, so I don't really feel like she's going to take huge jumps in her skill set or what she does. So, it is what it is. It's going to be, if it's enough to beat a girl like Silvana Gomez Juarez, who's also older. She's 37 years old. She also came in on short notice. Her last fight, she fought Lupita Godinez and didn't really work out for her. She got taken down right away, gave her back, was submitted, and wasn't really able to show anything in that fight. But, resume-wise, Gomez to me is a bit suspect. She's been in there with some okay fighters. She's been in there with Lupita Godinez, Ariane Lipsky. She was in there with Poliana Botelho. The issue, she lost all 3 of those fights, and her 10 wins have came against low-level competition. Her best win she had was against Vanessa Mello, who, not a cup of coffee in the UFC, but no wins. And, the best fighter that Juarez has defeated since 2014 is a 6-4 opponent. Her last win was against a girl who was 4-6. And Demopoulos has definitely been fighting much higher level fighters. Juarez, she has pretty good footwork. She likes to move around on the outside, work jabs, work leg kicks. And when fighters get in the range, she will let go with some nice hooks. Her jab is stiff, so she controls distance with it fairly well. And she'll throw the 3-2. Her hands are pretty fast, and she doesn't pop. I've seen her drop girls, stop opponents, and she does allow opponents to back her up, but she can be low volume. Defensively, when she throws punches, she doesn't really move her head, and she is hittable. And she doesn't really look as if she has good takedown defense. I've seen her get taken down in a lot of her fights with very little resistance. In her last fight with Lupita Godinez, she got taken down 30 seconds into the fight. And Juarez was able to get back up to her feet a couple times, but she gave her back. She gave some bad positions. And they were only on their feet for about 20 to 25 seconds before Lupi hit a low single, got on top again, got the back, and finished the match with an armbar. So I've seen fights where Juarez drops opponents, tries to get on top, and has been put in bad positions as well. Even on top, I think she'll be vulnerable to get submitted. She needs to avoid being on the ground at all costs, use her jab, use the low kicks, use the footwork, and just beat up Vanessa Demopoulos, her range, over 3 rounds. Vanessa, I'm not a big fan of her style. Her footwork, her movement is really bad, but she's tough. And she doesn't really have the best takedowns, but I think that she could dominate on the mat. And I feel like she's willing to take the shots that Juarez has to give her. She has a little bit better cardio. And I just think that at some point, the fight's going to end up on the ground, whether Juarez gets on top or Vanessa's able to somehow get a takedown. And I think she's going to get the finish just on the ground at some point. So I think what's going to happen is Juarez is going to be way better on the feet early, but I think she may slow down a little bit and just eventually, get caught on the ground. So I'm going to go with Vanessa Demopoulos via second round submission. In this fight, this is actually a good fight right here with Brian Kelleher. He's going to be taking on Saidyokub Kakharamonov. And, Said, he entered the UFC with a bang. I mean, he took on Trevin Jones, came in there, young guy, 26 years old, and he was able to get the win over Trevin Jones, who was on a 2-fight win streak via knockout. And he, has that immigrant mentality. He's from Uzbekistan, but elite training coming out of Team Oyama in the United States, and he has a very high level of confidence as well. So he has 3 wins in a row. He has some decent wins on his record. He beat Jarrell Hodge, who was the first fighter to beat Cody Garbrandt in May. He defeated a really tough Georgian fighter before on the regional scene. He has a win over Asker, who was 10-0 before they fought. But Brian Kelleher is definitely going to be the most experienced opponent that he's faced to date. And Kelleher has cemented himself as kind of a gatekeeper for the upper level of the bantamweight division. He lost to Montel Jackson. That was, I believe, 2019. He took over a year off from the sport, returned, and he's done really well. He's gone 4-2 with 3 finishes. And he was able to beat guys like Hunter Azur, Ode Osborne, and looking to upset another young prospect here in Said Kakharamonov. And, if you look at his resume, he's only really lost to elite fighters. His losses came against Ricky Simone, Cody Stamen, Montel Jackson, John Lineker, and Cheeto Vera. Not all those fighters are ranked or even in the UFC, but they're very high-level bantamweights, and all 5 of those guys are really tough guys to beat. And Kelleher has not picked up too many big wins. He usually takes out prospects or fringe-level UFC fighters. A couple wins over over-the-hill opponents like Yuri Alcantara and Renan Barão, but Said isn't the biggest name, and he's kind of in line with certain guys that Kelleher has been able to beat in the past. He's an aggressive grappler. On the feet, he's a little rudimentary, but it works for him. He has a long reach, and he's definitely improved with his distance control. He has good in-and-out movement. He has some good speed, and he closes distance with good punch combinations. Mainly likes to close the gap with a 1-2 or 2-3, and then he level changes. And he does a good job of when he gets on the inside, he'll use punches and bunches to level change. He has no issues brawling either. He has good power. He has some good body kicks, good high kicks. And he's finished 2 of his last 3 fights by knockout, so hopefully he hasn't fallen in love with his hands, and he does, mix it up and use his skill set, which is the grappling in his fights, but can be timid early a little bit as he tries to enter range. Sometimes he can, try to feel it out a little too much, get stuck on the outside, and I've only seen that happen after he's gotten knocked out, so I'm not too worried about it in this fight. I feel like he's going to be going for it and really brawling, moving in and out and being aggressive like he was his last time out. But against a guy that can crack, he has to be careful about not, getting hit as he's entering range with that shot, with that movement, or not get it with a knee or an uppercut like he did against Pipi Vargas, and he got knocked out in that fight. His other loss against Umar Nurmagomedov, that fight I feel like was fairly close. He even dropped Umar in the 3rd round, but he likes to wrestle. In that fight, he was trying to keep it on the feet, just like he did against Trevin Jones, who's just wrestling in reverse. And it worked for the most part, stuffed a lot of the takedowns. And when he did get taken down, he was able to get back up to his feet. But the issue was he was hesitant about the takedown threat, and it made him a little bit weary to blitz in. And that allowed Umar to move around, work some kicks, win on points. But Said has really good offensive grappling against most opponents. He has fast level changes, good top control. Fighters can give their backs a stand up because he isn't the greatest at controlling from the back mount, but he does have a couple rear naked choke victories, and he's good at staying connected to guys when they get back up to their feet and mat returning them. In his loss to Pipi Vargas, who's also a good grappler, he wasn't really able to control him on the mat, even though he took him down quite a few times. He does have elite cardio, which helps him a lot. He has a really cardio-taxing style in terms of moving a lot on the feet, being very explosive, and then using a lot of wrestling. But he can keep the same pace and pressure for 3 rounds, and has a good guillotine. He got that in his last fight. But in that fight, he was fighting Trevin Jones, who's a black belt, who's a strong guy. And a lot of the fight was spent with his back against the cage. He got taken down. He got mounted late in the 2nd round. And who knows what would have happened if there was a little bit more time on the clock. So I do think with Kelleher, he's probably going to be trying to keep it on the feet a little bit more, use his speed, be in and out, use his punches and bunches, use his reach advantage. And then if he can time some takedowns to kind of seal the rounds, I think he will do that. But Brian Kelleher, we kind of all know about him by now. He's a very sturdy guy. He has great cardio, and he's dangerous. He has big power in his hands, has the guillotine threat, and he's improved his wrestling quite a bit. You saw in his last fight against Domingo Pilarte, who, he's an easy guy to take down, let's be real. I mean, the guy stands really tall. He already has really long legs. And, Brian Kelleher was able to easily take him down, control him on top, and, really dominated the fight. But with Said, I don't think that he's going to be able to take him down and control him. I don't think that Said's going to be able to take down Kelleher and control him either. So it's probably going to be a striking fight. And Kelleher is going to have to try to be wily. He's going to be at a big speed disadvantage. He's going to be at the reach disadvantage. And he's going to have to try to catch Said with a knee, with an uppercut as he coming in, with a big overhand, with one of his right hooks, with his left hook that he really likes to throw. And if he connects, he's proven before that he could put guys' lights out. He was throwing some front kick up the middle against Ricky Simón that landed a couple of times, which is maybe a strike he could use against Said, who likes to crash forward. And Kelleher likes this role. He likes being an underdog against these up-and-coming young guys, and he can kind of beat them with his experience, with his dangerousness, and just being wily and an opportunistic guy. So Kelleher is someone that really usually gets the finish or gets the finish or loses by decision. And his last fight, he did finally get a decision win over Domingo Pilarte. He just held him down, dominated. But I feel like with this fight, it's going to be interesting because I don't think Said's going to get tired, which is what Kelleher needs a lot of opponents to do. He waits for them to gas out, and then he, capitalizes on that. So Said just has to manage his cardio. Like I said, don't go in there with the thought that you're just going to take down this guy, dominate him on the ground, and hold him down, because he's going to be hard to hold down. So strike with him a little bit, maybe time a takedown or two if he gets back up to your feet. Kind of know that's going to happen. Maintain your energy and just keep it going. Because I think that if he could just strike, use his speed, he's going to be a step ahead of Kelleher, and he just has to avoid making that mistake and getting finished. So going to go with Said Kakharamonov. I just feel like he's going to be smart in there. He's going to fight to a good game plan. And he's going to use his explosiveness. He's going to use his youth. He's going to use his athleticism, his speed advantage. But he's going to do it without putting himself in trouble. So because of that, I'm going to go with Said to pick up a decision win. And this next one is a really interesting fight as well. We got Viacheslav Borshchev. He's going to be taking on Dakota Bush. So Slava Borschev, he's a Russian junior boxing champion. He's a kickboxing world champion. In MMA, he's still very young in his career. He's only 5-1, but 4 of those wins have been knockout wins. He's 1-1 in decisions, and he had one of the most memorable performances in Dana White Contender Series history, though, because he bashed through Chris Duncan. He knocked him out, and then, he had that dance. He had the good interview with Laura Sanko, so he kind of announced himself. And he's one of these guys that, if you look at his credentials, the guy has really, really good hands, man, and he has really good kicks as well. And he trained on a Team Alpha Male, so his grappling should be improving. 30 years old, so he still has some time to put it together, but kind of has to get going now. He has one loss, and that was against Will Starks, who's 7-2 as a pro, 15-1 as an amateur. So Will Starks is a good fighter. Dakota Bush, he is looking to pull the upset, obviously. He had a short notice fight with Austin Hubbard last year, lost by decision. Had a good first round, but ran out of gas the last 2 rounds. And he's had a full camp for this one. He's training out of Glory MMA. He was actually supposed to fight Zhu Rong late last year, pulled out with COVID, so hopefully that's not too big of an impact, but that was a couple months ago at this point, and he's been, constantly thinking about fighting since then. He got this fight rebooked shortly after that one got canceled, so I think that he's going to be in good shape. He's going to be ready to go, and he's the more experienced MMA fighter of these two. He's fought some decent opponents, and mostly loses to grapplers, so this matchup is a decent matchup for him on paper. Slava is an amazing striker, though. He has great feints, great fakes, mixes the target to the head, to the body. His jab was on fire against Chris Duncan. Big hooks, big overhands, big power guy, vicious uppercuts. And he cuts great angles, really good footwork, super fast, puts combinations together really well. He's good at pressuring and looking to make the cage small for his opponents. Good kicks, nasty leg kicks, good front kicks to the body, really good high kicks. On the feet, this guy's the real deal, man. And he's really shown that his experience can help him as well, because I've seen him get dropped bad, face planted against Kenley St. Lucas, but quickly recovered, came back, won the fight via finish himself. So that was a really, really good thing that I saw. And he's improving as a grappler. I mean, he's improved his shot selection. He doesn't overextend as much. Really good with pressuring, feigning, faking. So it makes it a little bit tough to time the takedown on him. And he's pretty good in the clinch. He has good knees. He'll look for the elbows off the break. His takedown defense is still not very good. And off of his back, he has strong legs. So he'll try to use those to elevate his opponents, work to stand up. He'll try to get the underhook from bottom, come up onto his knees, and get back up to his feet. But he gives his back. He can go flat on the mat. And I think an opponent will be able to really dominate him on the ground, or the right opponent. And he does have good cardio. So even if he's taken down, he can work back up to his feet and go straight back on the pressure. And in this fight, he's going to have to deal with the takedown threat from Dakota Bush for sure. And obviously he knows that against, probably any opponent that he faces in the UFC. So he's going to be looking to, really work on that takedown defense and work on his get-ups and just being smarter on the ground. Dakota Bush, he obviously, like I said, is at Glory MMA. And he's a well-rounded guy. He has decent footwork. He's pretty fluid on the feet. He really likes to punch his way into the clinch. He'll put some punches, kick combinations together, blitz forward, and look for the takedown. He has some good elbows. In his last win, he landed a nice high kick. And he has 2 knockout wins. He likes to get clinch takedowns when he's on top. He really is good at getting the back, getting the rear naked choke. His defensive wrestling has not really been the greatest. That's how he's lost most of his fights. And he's tough. He's young. His cardio kind of failed him in his last fight, and that's what I'm a little bit worried about if I'm a backer of Dakota Bush, is he going to be able to keep that same pace over 3 rounds? Because he comes out in the first round, he does really well. He has a lot of finishes in the first round. He gets guys' backs, submits them, really dominates them. But as fights go on, we've seen him kind of slow down before in the past. And against Slava Borschev, like I said, Borschev has shown the ability to get taken down, be dominated, and still come back up to his feet and be fresh, be right back in your face. And with Dakota Bush, he has to come in here with 3 rounds of grappling in him. If he tries to strike with Borschev, he's going to get knocked out most likely. So with Dakota Bush, I do think that he's live at that number. I think the line's a little bit off. I feel like it should be closer to a money line pick'em, because Borschev hasn't really proved himself against many high-level wrestlers. Not that Bush is a great grappler, but he's serviceable enough, and he has more experience. He has the 1 UFC fight, so I think it's a closer fight than it's lined. And I think that first round submission for Bush is live. I think a late second, third round KO TKO for Slava's live. I feel like the fight not going to decision is a decent play, but I'm gonna go with the underdog. I'm gonna pick Dakota Bush because, like I said, I feel like the line should be a little bit closer, and I think Bush has the more dominating advantage on the ground, whereas on the feet, I do think that Borschev has a big advantage, but obviously with the threat of the takedown, Bush not being terrible on the feet, I think it's a little bit closer. So I'm going to go with Dakota Bush to win this one via decision or first round submission, and I think it's going to be fairly close if it goes to decision, but I'm going to go with Dakota Bush to squeak it out or dominate, get that first round sub. And in this next one, we got a featherweight fight, and it's 2 action guys. Both these guys always have really fun fights. We got downtown TJ Brown, who's coming off his first UFC win, where pretty controversial win here against Kai Kamaka. A lot of people thought it was one of the robberies of the year, but it was a fairly close fight, and TJ Brown did show quite a bit of improvement in that fight, and he got the job done. So he got the win. He's going to be coming in here off of a second camp here with Glory MMA, so probably going to have even more confidence and, be even more in shape and, be ready to go here against Gabriel Benitez. But Gabriel Mowgli Benitez, he's a guy that is back against the wall now. Three of his last 4 fights he's lost, and he's one of these guys that's been in the UFC forever, man. He's been in the UFC for a long time. He's had a lot of good fights, back and forth fights. He's gotten some good wins, but recently he just hasn't been doing that hot. And it seems like whenever he takes a step up in competition, he doesn't fare the greatest. He can beat these guys that are kind of fringe UFC level, but he struggles against a higher level of opposition. And this is a close fight for sure. TJ Brown has improved as a fighter, where I kind of think Gabriel Benitez is plateaued, just maintaining his skills. And TJ Brown's going to be the guy coming forward. He has the higher output, and he's pretty defensively sound. But in this fight, he has to be a little bit sharper. He can't have those, lulls in his concentration and get clipped. Because Mowgli's very accurate, very sharp. TJ has underrated hands himself, though. He has a good left cross. He has nice uppercuts. He has decent counters in the pocket. He's fairly good in the exchanges, fast hands. In this fight, he needs to pressure. He needs to use his hands to set up the takedowns. He shouldn't get in too many long exchanges with Benitez or try to brawl, because that's what Mowgli wants. He needs to be smart. He needs to use his speed. He has to land his shots, get Mowgli to get to a striking fight, then level change, get the fight to the ground. Benitez is a hittable guy, so he's going to be there to touch. Billy Q proved that in his last fight, and he proved that a fighter's capable of taking him down and grinding them out. Benitez has been taken down quite a few fights, and TJ Brown has good single legs. He has good doubles. He's fairly explosive, and he needs to use that here. Get on top, take the back of Mowgli. Mowgli has a good front choke, so Brown has to be careful of that. But even if Brown gets caught in a deep guillotine, he has the ability to bail out, go to his back, and I don't think that Mowgli will be able to hold him down. I think that Brown may be even able to create a scramble and end up getting back on top if that situation happens. As long as he has Mowgli grappling, he's going to be doing good. And to me, if they grapple heavy, Brown's going to have this pure cardio. Even though both fighters come in well conditioned, I think that Brown's just more used to being in that dogfight. For the favorite Mowgli, to win this fight, he's going to have to win it with his usual weapons. He's going to have to go out there and be the powerful southpaw. Use those hard leg kicks, hard body kicks. He's going to have to try to snipe with that straight left hand. He's going to have to try to land that knee up the middle. And if he can catch and jar TJ Brown, then maybe you can get him to panic wrestle, catch that front choke, or just flat knock him out. And he's been able to drop several opponents in the UFC. He has that good one shot, but he doesn't really put combinations together. And he hasn't gotten a ton of finishes in the UFC. He's more of a decision guy. Defensively, he is a hittable guy, but he has that Mexican heart. He could take a lot of damage and hang in there. But he's taken a lot of punishment in his UFC career. He did get dropped in his fight with Billy Q. He got rocked quite a few times. And eventually he did get finished in that fight with elbows from the back mount. Kind of eye-raising because Billy Q isn't necessarily known for his power. He was able to drop him, hurt him. Benitez did get knocked out against Sadiq Yusuf and Andre Fili. And TJ has underrated hands. He has decent power. I think he could even hurt Mowgli on the feet. Mowgli has a good chance of hitting that power cross and sitting down TJ or taking him out if they exchange. TJ has been clipped, dropped in quite a few fights. But the issue is TJ is a mauler on top. He has good control, good transitions. And I think he could take the back and make this fight look like Benitez's last fight. One thing I like from TJ Brown's last fight, even if it was controversial, he proved he's willing to dig deep to get the win. He was switching stances, being a little bit smarter with the striking. He's the younger guy. He has more to gain from victory in this spot. And he also has the difference in what I think would be a close fight on the feet and the ability to bring it to the ground. You can never be extremely confident in a fighter like TJ Brown because fight IQ can fail him and has failed him in multiple fights. But teaming up with a good gym, good coach like James Krause, finally getting a UFC win, some money, some stability. His training should be better. He should look sharper, be more hungry to continue that success. And my pick's going to be TJ Brown. He's going to go in there and mix it up, use the grappling, either finish on the ground. And that's kind of what I think can happen. He can't get knocked out, but Mowgli hasn't really finished quite very many guys. And I think that TJ Brown's going to get a late submission in this fight. So I'm going to go with TJ Brown to pick up the slight upset. And in this next fight, we got two grapplers facing off with Ramiz Brahimaj taking on McGee. And this is, to me, not the greatest fight on paper, but anytime McGee's in there, you could sign me up to watch. He's been in there and done well for years. But looking for his first back-to-back 2 wins in a row in the UFC since he beat Robert Whittaker way back in 2013. So it's been quite a while for him. He did look good in his last fight, though, against Claudio Silva. One thing about that can be a little bit deceiving, though, in my opinion, is he was facing another guy that was up there, the same age as him, same type of mileage, and looked good, was able to dominate him. But now he's facing a younger guy by 8 years younger, facing a guy that's coming off a win himself, got his first UFC win, Ramiz Brahimaj, against Sasha Palatnikov in his last fight, submitted him really early in that first round, and that's what's going to be the contrast here. Can McGee match that intensity level and just kind of ferocity that Ramiz comes out early with? Because Ramiz Brahimaj is one of these guys that really good submission grappler. He has a good double leg. He kind of is actually, in my opinion, a better wrestler than people give him credit for, especially when he's fresh and early in his fights. He has good power. It seems like he's a strong guy, can pick up and elevate, get big takedowns. And he's very aggressive and just super intense off the bat. He likes to get the back, get that submission win. And he has good arm triangles. So when he gets the fight to the ground early on in a fight, he's always looking for submission over position. And that can cost him in the long run because his cardio is not the greatest. And sometimes, he can go for that submission, end up on his back, get controlled, get a little bit more tired, and then his takedowns don't come. He's getting beat up on the feet, and he loses the fight. And you watch his first fight against Max Griffin, really struggled with the movement and the footwork. Ramiz, he, striking-wise, just throws these big loop-in shots. He has an okay, right cross, but really just kind of rudimentary striking to get to the takedown. He has some power, but that's about it. And really struggles with footwork, kind of flat-footed. Comes in straight lines, doesn't really have the best footwork in terms of cutting off the cage. So Max Griffin, a guy that has good footwork, has a long reach, good jab, was able to just jab him up, move around, and eventually finished him with that weird ear injury thing. But one thing that Ramiz does have is he has good durability. He has the ability to take shots and stay in there, but he doesn't have great cardio. I think almost all of his wins are in that first round. His last fight, he had very little resistance, got the win. And against McGee, I just don't think it's going to go down like that, man. McGee is one of these guys that's notorious for being hard to finish. I mean, the guy came back from the dead. And, McGee has never been submitted in his career. So for Ramiz to just go in here and submit him really early, I find that a little bit hard to believe. McGee, I mean, we've seen him been fighting for years now. One of these guys that trains over at the pit. And I'm sure he's getting a lot of motivation recently from his friend Glover Teixeira, his training partner, getting out there, getting that belt at 42. He's 5 years younger than that, so probably feels like he has a ton of time left. And he, obviously coming out of that gym, training at the elevation, he has phenomenal cardio, comes forward. He has pretty good boxing on the feet. He's definitely the better guy in terms of the footwork. He, can pull counter fairly well, good distance control. Good job of pressuring guys and then dirty boxing them, getting in the clinch, making it ugly. And he could really wrestle his ass off, man. I mean, the guy's an underrated grappler. He's super hard to hold down. Watch his fight with Sean Brady. I mean, that guy's proven to be a beast. I mean, Sean Brady, even though I totally disagree with that decision, kind of, in my opinion, I thought that, Craig Jones was controlling the match. But Sean Brady just beat Craig Jones in a grappling contest. Sean Brady was able to destroy Michael Chiesa in the wrestling department, take him down at ease, make him look like a child, and just manhandling him. And McGee was holding his own, man. McGee wasn't getting taken down like that. Sean Brady wasn't able to control McGee on the mat, and McGee made it a really tough fight. Early on, if Ramiz takes him down, he is going to obviously have that submission threat and ability to submit McGee. He's a really good submission grappler, but if he can't get that done, what's going to happen in that second and the third round? Is McGee going to start walking him down and beating him up? Can McGee take down Ramiz Brahimaj, control him on top? I think he can. So there's some variables in this fight, and there's some things that I think kind of more point me towards picking Court McGee in terms of the experience, in terms of the cardio. And that's why I'm going to go with Court McGee. I just don't see the guy, having never been submitted in his career, being submitted in the first round against Brahimaj. And if Brahimaj can't get him out of there early, I don't know if Brahimaj has proven to me throughout his career that he has that pacing ability to, get the win over 3 rounds. So maybe this is one of these fights you could pinpoint as a live betting opportunity, especially if Brahimaj comes out really hot, maybe almost gets the submission, dominates the first round. You can go ahead and put a bet in there on Court McGee. But I think Court McGee is going to get the decision win in this one. He's not much of a finisher. And I think he's going to have to weather, a bit of a storm in the first round, but then he's going to start to take over and really kind of win the fight clearly. So I'm going to go with Court McGee here. Just in terms of betting, though, like moneyline bet, it's tough because Court McGee, like I said, is older. He just got that win against an older opponent, and before that he had lost 3 fights in a row. And I would kind of just do the live bet. I wouldn't bet on him moneyline-wise because he's a slight favorite, and he could come in there and look terrible. He could get taken down and get dominated by Ramiz, just look old. So I'm going to probably pass on it, but I am going to pick Court McGee by decision here. Moving along through the card here, we got Jamie Pickett taking on Joseph Holmes. Both these guys are Dana White Contender Series guys. Jamie Pickett, he finally picked up his first UFC win in his last fight. He went in there, he beat Loriano Staropoli. Kind of feel like he still didn't perform up to his potential, but did enough to get the win in that one and was able to stay in the UFC. And he's facing Joseph Uglyman Holmes, who's won 7 fights in a row. His last 2 wins came on the Contender Series and on Looking for a Fight, so that's what got him signed. Got a submission finish on the Contender Series, and he followed that up with a knockout win in November. And this is going to be his 3rd fight in 4 months, so Holmes has been very active recently. And he can match the height and the reach of Jamie Pickett, which I feel like is something that Pickett's going to have to deal with because he usually uses that and really relies on that in his fight. He's going to be the shorter guy in this one. He's going to have someone that has the exact same 80-inch reach as him. So it's going to be something he's going to have to adapt to. But he's going to have to make Holmes adapt to that as well and be aggressive. But 2 of the bigger guys at middleweight, Holmes, he's pretty slick. He has good composure on the feet. He has good straight shots, good kicks. His speed is good, and he's faster than Pickett, in my opinion. And he also has good knees in the clinch. He has good takedowns. One thing about him, though, I feel like is he doesn't really go first in a lot of his fights early on. He can kind of feel it out and be really low volume. And in the UFC, you can't really let your opponents dictate the pace like that because it could just go downhill if you give him a big advantage early. So he has to be a little bit more aggressive and just be a little bit more sharp and turned on early in the fight. And then I haven't really seen him get hit with many big shots or how he reacts to getting clipped hard. So that's another thing that you have to learn about Joseph Holmes. But Holmes on top, he has good elbows, he has good top control, he could take the back, he has good rear naked chokes. And I've seen guys give Holmes issues by taking him down, though. He doesn't really have the best takedown defense, and sometimes it seems like he lets guys take him down so he can look for that triangles or arm bars, and it's not really the smartest thing to do. He has a fairly good guillotine. Jamie Pickett, he's a tough guy. His chin is really good. He has the ability to get hurt and hang in there, and he also, when he lets it go, he can be pretty explosive. He has good straight shots. Seems like he's a little bit more timid. He's kind of afraid to get hit, and that really limits his offense in certain fights. But when he can be the bully and he can go first, he'll let some good combinations go. It seems like he has good hand speed. He has okay kicks. He'll look for the high kick. Looks for some round kicks to the body, things like that. But I feel like he's a little bit... even though I think that he has the ability to strike, I don't know if he's as composed and loose as Holmes is at range, and I think he's going to struggle a little bit there. in the clinch in his last fight, I felt like Jamie Pickett was better in the clinch than he is, man. Or maybe that was just a bad performance because he was getting out clinched by Lariano Staropoli, and I was really surprised by that. I thought he was going to be able to be much more dominant himself there in the clinch. And he was able to use his size and kind of impose himself and get the win in that one. But with Holmes, I don't know if that's going to be a viable path to victory. Holmes, I just feel like he has a little bit better range. He's better in the clinch. And on the ground, he has more of a submission threat. So Pickett, I think, is going to have to, really just kind of big body him, try to push him against the cage, use his size, and maybe get on top and control it, ride it out. But I don't think he's going to do that. I think that Holmes is going to more, even though early on maybe he could struggle to dictate the pace, I think eventually he's going to be the guy that takes the front foot and starts being a little bit more offensive. And I think Pickett could get submitted in this one. I think he could maybe go for the takedown, get reversed, and get submitted, or Holmes could hit him in the clinch with a shot that he doesn't like and then finish him off. But I'm going to go with Joseph Holmes, the newcomer, to get the win and get Jamie Pickett out of there. It could be a decision win as well, but I think Joseph Holmes is going to get the win. And in the first fight of the main card, we got Joanderson Brito taking on Bill Algeo. This is a fight that's pretty good here. We got a UFC newcomer in Joanderson Brito who just got the win on the Contender Series, who is really fun to watch. She has that shoot box style, comes forward, those big bombs, get the takedown, and just dominates on top. Good top control, good ground and pounds. Pretty good submission game. He's not the most technical guy, but super athletic, really fast, really powerful, really explosive. And he'll just crash forward, man, with these big hooks, big overhands. Use that to get you on the back foot, takes you down, controls you on top, and that's going to be a fairly viable path to victory against Bill Algeo, who's shown throughout his career that his takedown defense is not the best. I mean, Bill Algeo is a really skilled guy. He's a guy that on the feet I think is a better striker. He's going to be trying to use his footwork, use his movement. He's going to have the, even though Joanderson Brito is 5'8", he has really long arms. He's 72-inch reach, but Bill Algeo is going to still have a 1.5-inch reach advantage. And he does a really good job of, coming up with big knees. He was able to land some nice knees on Ricardo Lamas, almost got him out of there. Using that straight right hand. His hands aren't really the greatest. When he gets put in the pocket, guys can land some shots on him. I do think Brito's a little bit better with the hands, but Algeo has good kicks. Fairly good timing. He can walk guys into shots. He's going to be looking to walk Brito into a big shot, knock him out. And when he gets taken down, Algeo does have a black belt, and he's good at scrambling back up to his feet. He's an opportunistic takedown guy himself, so he doesn't have the best wrestling, but if he could time a double or something, he'll get you to the ground, and he's pretty good with his top control. He wears guys out. He has great cardio. And when guys take him down, he can scramble back up to his feet and just kind of get back up to their face, go to work. Brito also has good cardio, but I think that with this type of fight, Brito's going to have to get some top control to slow the pace of the fight down. Algeo tends to give his back a lot, and he's really good at getting back up to his feet by giving his back, but Brito has to make him pay for that. Maybe backpack him for a round. Do something where you could win a round and not use a ton of cardio, because Algeo's going to test that, and maybe the third round you'll be a little bit tired, so you have to be ready to just be able to keep that pace. So I think Joanderson Brito is just a little bit too physical, a little bit too much of a dog, and he's going to be able to, at least for 2 rounds, get the takedowns, get enough top control, and win the fight. But his last fight, he got put in some deep submission attempts, got 3 eye pokes or 2 eye pokes in the third round, and the fight ended up being kind of a technical decision. So that's a little bit something you have to be worried about. Brito has to be locked in, no fouls, things like that. But I think that Algeo's going to test him. I think it could be a fairly close fight, but I actually feel like Brito is going to get this one done via close decision. And we got a heavyweight fight here. We got Chase Sherman taking on Jake Collier. Kind of a funny fight, 2 low-level heavyweights, they come to bang, The Vanilla Gorilla, Chase Sherman, he got cut from the UFC, came back, but still kind of seems like the same guy. He has gone to Sanford MMA, and he made a big deal of how he was improving for his Parker Porter fight, but got in there. He was the same old Sherman. And I don't really know at this point if he's ever going to be able to do or be anything more than he is now. He's still young for heavyweight. He's 32 years old. But he's fought in the UFC a ton and just not been able to get over the hump. Jake Collier obviously is a winnable fight, though. Jake Collier is a guy that's been in the UFC even longer than Chase Sherman. He started all the way down at middleweight, and now he's 265 pounds. So a lot has changed since he joined the promotion. And took almost 3 years off before returning and fighting Tom Aspinall. And that was a big shock. Obviously, he had gained a lot of weight, and people weren't really sure what to make of it. And then he got knocked out in 45 seconds, so was a little bit weary about the ability for Jake Collier to continue his career, but got the win over Gianvillante. And everyone kind of knows about Gianvillante's late career struggles, the weight gain of his own, and that guy got spinning wheel kicked by a 5'8" heavyweight in his last fight. So how good of a win that is, I don't really know, but I think his last fight was actually more impressive, even though it was a loss. He lost a split decision to Carlos Felipe. That fight could have went either way. Carlos Felipe, is a decent fighter, but he is the type of guy to be in super close bouts. So if you look at his record, his first fight against Sergey Spivak, majority decision. His other 2 fights, split decisions. So, Jake Collier, even though he did go to a close fight with him, that is kind of a tendency in a Carlos Felipe fight. But Collier, he does have good footwork. He switches stances, good jab. He has pretty good hand speed for a heavyweight. He has good hand combinations, good low kicks. His grappling, I haven't really seen it get tested in heavyweight. I feel like his grappling probably won't be very good. He doesn't seem like he has the highest level of fitness. But Chase Sherman isn't really going to test that. Chase Sherman's a guy that has good pressure. He feints fairly well. Big low kicks. Nice right hand, straight right hand. He'll try to set it up with the jab to the body. Pretty good hand speed himself. And we can get guys to the cage. He will throw some combinations, throw some elbows, and try to finish you. He likes to fight usually at a slower pace. And neither of these guys have big knockout power. But Sherman has a good chin. He's proven he can take punishment. And he is a bigger guy, just in terms of he's never going to be a guy that's going to go out there and fight at middleweight or something. So this is one of the first big guys that Collier has fought since Tom Aspinall. I feel like with Gianvillante, obviously, he's a smaller heavyweight, and then even Carlos Felipe as well. But Sherman, he has really poor cardio. That's something I think Collier has a big advantage in terms of he seems to get better as the fight goes on, and Sherman seems to fall off a cliff. 12 of Sherman's 15 wins are first-round finishes. He's 1-5 in fights that have gone to round 3. And I think Jake Collier is a bit more diverse with his striking. I think he has better footwork. His defense is better. And I think he's the bigger dog. So I think he's going to push through fatigue more. And I think he's going to win ugly decision just on volume and grit. So going to go with Jake Collier. If Chase Sherman can't get him out of there in the first round, I think he's going to be in trouble. Collier has been knocked out twice in the first round, but one of them was against Tom Aspinall, who probably would finish Chase Sherman in the first round as well. And the other was a head kick. So Collier's proven to be fairly durable, and I think he'll be able to get to that third round and just beat up Chase Sherman and get the win via decision. And in this next fight, we got Brandon Royval. He's going to be taking on Rogerio Bontorin. A bit of an interesting fight here because we got a contrast styles in terms of Rogerio Bontorin. He's a guy that's, very sturdy. He comes in with the traditional MMA game where he comes forward, he'll switch stances a little bit, but he likes to use the big overhand right. He'll use some boxing combinations, some leg kicks, and then he's looking for the double, looking to get in the clinch, looking to take you down, control you on top, backpack you. He has pretty good rear naked chokes, and he has a lot of strength. He's a big guy for the division. His last fight, he missed weight for bantamweight. Now he's coming back down to flyweight, so the weight cut is something that I'm going to be looking into, see if he makes weight, see how he looks on the scales, things like that. But then we got Brandon Royval, who's just on the opposite end of the spectrum. The guy likes to make fights crazy. He likes to, get in that chaos and either get finished or finish the fight. And he's been pretty successful with that. Throughout his UFC career, he's made a name for himself by doing that. He came off with a bang. He knocked out Kai Kara, a wild fight. or submitted him. I can't remember 100%, but he had a great fight with Kakhara where I think it was a knockout with the knee, but it could have been a club and sub submission. Yeah, it was a submission. And then Tim Elliott as well, we submitted him. Recently, he's went in there with some of the best guys in the world. Brandon Moreno, the current champ, he hurt his arm in that fight. Then he did get submitted by Alexandre Pantoja in a fight that I think Bontorin's going to be trying to take a game plan from. But Royval on the feet, he's very long and kind of wild. He throws a lot of kicks. He'll try to throw some elbows, switch stances, throw really long straight shots. A lot of combinations, keeps the volume high, a lot of pressure. And he could be overwhelming for a lot of guys. He could kind of use his striking on the feet to get them to shoot in, and then he catches them in a wild submission. And on the ground, he's one of these guys that submission over position, likes to create scrambles, really hard to hold down, and kind of eventually he could just catch you if you get tired. And he has good cardio. He trains at elevation. He's going to be motivated coming off 2 losses in a row. And Bontorin, the guy does have a chance to hit takedowns, control on top, and maybe backpack Brandon Royval and use his jiu-jitsu. But I feel like he doesn't really go for the grappling and the wrestling as much as I would like him to. A lot of his UFC fights he keeps on the feet for large periods of time. And he also just doesn't really have good defense on the feet. I think he's going to walk into some big shots. And I think Royval's going to knock him out. So I'm going to go with Brandon Royval in this one to get the finish. The line, I feel like it's a little wide because anytime you got a guy like Brandon Royval who's wild, doesn't really fight to a great game plan, a fighter that could slow it down or especially match their jiu-jitsu level on the ground like Bontorin, maybe he'll be able to, win the scrambles, backpack Royval or take him down and control him for 2 out of 3 rounds or 3 out of the 3 rounds. But I don't see that. I think that Bontorin isn't quite on the level of Pantoja, and I was fairly impressed with Royval's ability to scramble with Pantoja and how well that he did before getting submitted. So I'm going to go with Brandon Royval here to get the finish. So in the co-main event here, we got the rematch of the century. We got Katlyn Chookagian. She's going to be taking on Jennifer Maia. This is a matchup for the ages. Chookagian, she won her the first fight they had by unanimous decision in 2019. She earned the title shot off that win. She fought Valentina. She lost via 3rd round knockout. She's gone 3-1 since then. She beat Antonina Shevchenko. She beat Cynthia Calvillo. She beat Viviane Araújo in her last fight. Her loss came to Jessica Andrade, who also is a former UFC champion. And for Jennifer Maia, she's gone 2-1 in 3 fights. Since that fight against Katlyn Chookagian, she beat Jessica Ai. She was able to get another victory in between then over Joanne Wood. And she has the loss to Valentina Shevchenko as well. She actually went all 5 rounds with Valentina. She was able to win 1 round, but the fight was not very competitive. This fight, I don't really know why it would be much different than the last fight. This fight being in the smaller cage, maybe that could play a factor. Chookagian, she's actually only gone 1-1 in the smaller cage in her UFC career. She's definitely usually fighting in that bigger cage. She's fought on a lot of pay-per-views. She's fought on some UFC on Fox cards. And she's only fought Antonina Shevchenko. If you remember, she didn't really implement her usual style in that fight either. She used offensive wrestling, grappling to beat Shevchenko. And Jessica Andrade in her 2 fights at the Apex. So, Chookagian on the feet, man, faster, longer. She's going to pick apart Jennifer Maia. She has a really good jab. Her kicks are good. She, just has the speed advantage, like I said. She has the big reach advantage, and she has more diversity in her attacks. Maia really struggles to find her range. She doesn't have the same level of footwork, and she just can't find her boxing range. She gets beat up with, leg kicks, jabs, high kicks, front kicks. Chookagian was landing, the occasional 2. And it wasn't like she's beating Jennifer Maia up, but she's able to just use her volume, stay at range, and pick her apart. And Maia, she kind of found the blueprint to get the victory late in the fight. She was able to get a takedown in the 3rd round with like 1 minute and 30 seconds left fairly easily. She was on top until the end of the fight. So, if she can go in there and get the takedowns, then that could be a path to victory for Jennifer Maia for sure. I feel like she's the superior wrestler. She's probably stronger physically. And if she can get on top, control her, then that's going to be the way that she could win. But Katlyn Chookagian did have a leg lock in near the end of the round, the 3rd round. So she was attacking off her back, and I don't necessarily know if Maia will be able to control her effectively for long periods of time. And Maia has never gotten more than 1 takedown in a UFC fight. This is her 8th fight, so it's tough to see her going in there and getting 3, 4, 5 takedowns. She has to know she has to pressure and wrestle, though, because she already has 15 minutes of getting beat up on the feet against Katlyn. It's just, when fighters don't have that skill set, it's not like Maia is one of these girls that's super explosive, going to hit a blast double on you or something. She, is at a big height and reach disadvantage. And I think Katlyn's just going to be able to use her footwork and beat her up again. It's just smaller cage, 15 minutes of data to know you can't strike with her, take her down. Maia, if she comes in here and fights smart, she could definitely get the win, get the upset. But going to go with Katlyn Chookagian to, point her way to another decision victory. And finally here we got the main event. And it's actually a pretty good main event. We got 2 strikers here, Calvin Kattar, Giga Chikadze. And man, in terms of Giga Chikadze, a lot of you guys know I'm not very good with picking this guy's fights. It might be a time to, shut off the video and not. But, I've just 3 of the last 4 fights I picked against Giga, and he's proved me wrong. He's gotten the win. And I'm thinking okay, now I gotta jump on the bandwagon, right? But you guys are like, there's so many motherfuckers on there. It's like, holy shit, man. There's definitely not -2. They got Calvin Kattar as a plus 200 underdog. I think that's kind of wild. Calvin Kattar hasn't fought in a year, and I think a lot of that is bunched into his last fight with Max Holloway. He took one of the worst 5-round beatings in UFC history, and who knows how he's going to bounce back from that. But taking a year off, it is ample time if he's ever going to, come back and be the same. Brian Ortega was able to come back and look, pretty good. So maybe Kattar could come back and do the same thing. We're just going to have to wait and see. But I do feel like the line's a little bit crazy. With Giga Chikadze, obviously he's one of the best kickboxers in MMA today. He has done really well with that. His last 2 fights, he's been in there with legends, with Edson Barbosa. He finished him in the 3rd round. He finished Cub Swanson less than a minute into their fight with his Giga kick, the liver kick. And Chikadze's just one of these guys, man, that's a specialist. He can switch stances. He has pretty good hands. He doesn't really throw hand combinations and things like that. He's definitely more of a kicker where he likes to stay on the outside. He'll switch stances. He can kick with both legs and has big power in his kicks. But, Giga, he does have good timing. He could slip that straight right, straight left in there. He has pretty good accuracy in exchanges. He has fairly fast hands. So his last fight with Edson Barbosa, I was pretty surprised that he was able to put him down with punches. I didn't think Giga had crazy power in his hands, but he was able to drop Edson, finish him in his last fight with strikes, with punches, and that was pretty impressive. His cardio, I do feel like, is a bit of a question mark. He has slowed down in other fights. Even in his last fight with Edson Barbosa, I feel like the 2nd round, it looked like maybe he was slowing down a little bit. But, he was able to get that finish. And Giga, he wants that range. So if guys pressure him, that is the way to effectively do well against him on the feet. Jam his kicks. You might have to take some shots, but, take those shots, come forward. And that's something that Calvin Kattar does pretty effectively. Calvin's a good boxer, good 1-2s. His leg kicks are improved. His jab has gotten a lot better. And, he basically just comes forward and tries to dog you out. He'll attack the body. He needs to wrestle more in this fight, mix it up, because Giga Chikadze, he hasn't really proven that he can defend takedowns, and he hasn't really shown much of his game off his back, things like that. So I do think that Kattar, being a good high school wrestler, needs to try to exploit that, even though that's not really part of his usual game. And Kattar just has to be tough, man. I think that early on he may struggle a little bit because Giga comes out fast, very dangerous, very explosive, has power. And who knows how Calvin's going to come out in terms of if he's going to be a little bit gun shy, if he's going to be, ready to go, very, very aggressive, trying to get that last fight back. But either way, I think that Giga early on, unless Calvin can implement grappling quickly, is going to have that advantage on the feet when they're fresh. Calvin just has to stay the course, keep pressuring, eat some shots, and stay in Giga's face and slowly get him tired like he did against Khabib Nurmagomedov. And then from there he needs to start to implement his boxing, land his punches, maybe mix in a takedown or two, and really go to work. Because Calvin, one thing about him that he's proven is that the guy is durable, man. The guy could take shots, keep coming. He's never going to quit. I mean, that fight with Max Holloway was pretty insane, but he's been in multiple 5-round fights at this point. Went 5 rounds against Dan Ige, and he has more paths to victory in this one, in my opinion, where he can win by decision, he can win by TKO on the ground, or TKO on the feet if Giga gets a little bit tired. But man, it's just tough because it's like, if you look at the trajectory of both of their careers, Giga's just been on a skyrocket. He's been winning so much recently. Calvin got beat up, took a year off. He has been fighting a lot higher level of competition, but how much is that Max Holloway fight taken out of Kattar? How is he going to look? Is he going to be as confident? There's just too many question marks for me to go against Giga, who has a lot of confidence right now, has been doing really well. I don't really like how Giga is overlooking Calvin so much, talking about the belt so much and things like that. Like, you have to win against Calvin first and, be, on your A game, and you have to really look at this guy as a real opponent, because Calvin Kattar's no joke. He's super tough. He could box, great durability. He can mix in the grappling a little bit. And, he's shown that he has some power in his hands. He can knock you out. So it's an intriguing fight. If this fight was, done a year ago, I probably would pick Calvin Kattar. But it's just, I don't know. I have more confidence picking Giga at this point. I'm going to pick him, even though I'm not really necessarily sold on, him being a future champion or even being super competitive in those type of fights. But he's facing a guy that's not grappling heavy in this one. Pretty one-dimensional on the feet. Just took a lot of damage. Is a little bit older. So I think Calvin might fall short in this one, and Giga will get it done. So I'm going to go with Giga Chikadze, but moneyline-wise, I think the value is all over Calvin Kattar, man. I don't know how you could justify a minus 250 bet on Giga. I think that Kattar has some value. If he comes in 100%, he could get the win. But I'm going to, take the easy way out and go with the favorite of Giga Chikadze. For my parlay of the week this week, I'm going to go with Joseph Holmes and Katlyn Chookagian. For my most confident pick, I'll go with Katlyn Chookagian. So thanks for watching, guys. There you have it. That's the full card breakdown, the first one of the year for Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze. Would really appreciate it if you guys put a comment down below, put a like on the video. It really goes a long way in terms of being able to share this video and continue to put out content for you guys. And then everyone that wants to check out the Patreon or is on the Patreon, I really appreciate you guys as well. That's one of the main reasons why I'm able to continue doing this content and keep rocking with you guys. So if you like the channel and you want to see it keep going, then I would recommend going over there. And yeah, guys, thanks for watching. We're going to be doing it again this year. We're going to hopefully continue the good results that we're having towards the end of 2021 and kill it for this whole year. So that's my goal. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll definitely be back. Talk to you guys later.